Mill Creek has always been one of those small American towns where nothing much ever seems to happen. Located an hour's drive from Detroit, with a population of just over 12,000, it was a place where people knew each other by name, greeted each other on the streets, and left their doors unlocked. A main street lined with family-owned shops, an old water tower that had become a local landmark, a high school that prided itself on its football team, and a church that drew nearly half the town on Sundays. That was the town, and that's how it had been for decades. The Murphy family home was located at 1422 Pine Street, a two-story house with a white fence and a well-kept yard. Melissa Murphy had lived there with her daughter Ashley since she divorced her first husband 8 years ago. Over the years, the house had gone from a place filled with tears and screams to a quiet haven. At least that's how it seemed to the neighbors. They were such a wonderful family, especially after Ryan came along, says Barbara Jenkins, a 67-year-old neighbor who lives across the street. Melissa was always a good mother, but with him, they finally looked happy again. Ashley seemed to blossom too. Ryan Baker came into their lives 2 years ago. A manager at a local Food Plus supermarket, he met Melissa when she was looking for a temporary job. Their romance developed quickly, and soon Ryan moved in with them. 6 months later, they were married at the City Hall in a modest ceremony attended by close friends and colleagues. Melissa deserved happiness, says Carol Regan, Melissa's colleague at St. Joseph's Clinic, where she worked as a nurse. After everything she went through with Tom, she needed someone she could rely on. Ryan seemed like that person. At 16, Ashley Murphy was one of the most promising students at Mill Creek High School. Tall, with chestnut hair usually pulled back in a casual ponytail, she was one of the top students in her class, captain of the debate team, and a volunteer at the local library. Her teachers predicted she would attend a prestigious college and have a bright future. She was quick-witted and determined, says Daniel Foster, her English teacher. She wasn't one of those teenagers who just went with the flow. She had plans and ambitions. She wanted to be a journalist and write about social issues. On the morning of March 17, 2025, when Melissa Murphy called 911, there was no sign of the tragedy to come. The recording of the call, which would later be played in court, captured a woman's trembling voice. "My daughter, she's not breathing. Oh my God, she's dead. Please help. The address is 1422 Pine Street. Please hurry." A patrol car arrived 7 minutes later. Officers Mike Donovan and Lisa Perez found Melissa sitting on the floor in Ashley's bedroom and the girl's body on the bed. The initial conclusion was multiple head and upper body injuries. The room was relatively tidy, except for an overturned chair and several items that had fallen from the desk, indicating a possible struggle. Mrs. Murphy was in shock, Officer Perez recalled. She wasn't crying, she just sat next to her daughter and kept repeating, "I found her like this. I found her like this." Ryan Baker was at work at the time, where he spent the entire night preparing a quarterly report. This was confirmed by surveillance cameras and the testimony of a supermarket security guard. Detective Sarah Coleman arrived at the scene at 8:43 a.m. With 20 years of experience in the police force and specializing in domestic crimes, she immediately took control of the case. Her first impression, as she later wrote in her report, was mixed. The room seemed too tidy for the scene of a violent death. It felt like someone had tried to clean up after the incident. Over the next 48 hours, the Mill Creek police conducted dozens of interviews. The picture of Ashley that emerged from the statements was contradictory. On the one hand, she was a gifted student and ambitious young woman. On the other, she was a teenager with signs of emotional instability. She had changed in recent months, said Jason Hart, Ashley's ex-boyfriend, whom she broke up with 3 months before her death. She became more withdrawn and distanced herself from her friends. We had been dating for almost a year, but suddenly she said she needed space, that she had too much going on at home. School psychologist Rachel Morris recalls that Ashley came to her twice during the last semester. She talked about a difficult relationship with her mother, about feeling misunderstood. This is typical for teenagers, but in Ashley's case, there was something else. I couldn't figure out what it was. The initial examination established the time of death between 10 p.m. on March 16th and 2 a.m. on March 17th. The cause of death was traumatic brain injury caused by a blunt object, presumably a heavy table lamp found in the room with traces of the victim's blood and hair. Melissa Murphy claimed that she returned home around 7 a.m. after a night shift at the clinic, went upstairs to check on her daughter, and found her dead. According to her, she last saw Ashley alive the day before around 6 p.m., before leaving for work, when her daughter was getting ready to do her homework. Everything was normal, Melissa told Detective Coleman during her initial interview. No arguments, no problems. I asked her if she wanted me to bring anything from the bakery when I came home in the morning. She said she wanted a blueberry muffin. I bought it. It's still in my bag. Ryan Baker, summoned to the police station immediately after the body was discovered, looked devastated. I can't believe it. She was such a bright kid. Who could have done this to her? However, Detective Coleman, reviewing surveillance footage from the supermarket entrance, discovered that Ryan had left the building for 40 minutes between 11:15 p.m. and 11:55 p.m., contradicting his initial statement that he had not left the building all night. When asked about this discrepancy, Ryan nervously explained, "I went out to get some fresh air and smoke. I sometimes take breaks when I work late. It helps me focus." Parking lot cameras recorded his car leaving the premises, but the quality of the footage did not allow them to determine whether he was alone in the car. On the third day of the investigation, Detective Coleman gained access to Ashley's phone and discovered a series of deleted messages, some of which were partially recovered by technical experts. The texts pointed to a tense family relationship and a possible conflict that had occurred shortly before her death. In one message sent to her friend Cassie on the afternoon of March 16th, Ashley wrote, "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. Sometimes I feel like she suspects something. It's eating me up inside." In her diary, found in a hiding place under the floorboards in her room, the last entry was dated March 15th. "I can't live a double life anymore. It has to end, but I'm afraid of the consequences. What if I ruin everything? What if she never forgives me?" By the end of the first week of the investigation, Detective Coleman began to see that the Murphy family's seemingly perfect facade hid a much more complex and disturbing reality. The quiet town of Mill Creek was not prepared for what lay behind the closed doors of 1422 Pine Street. With each passing day, Detective Sarah Coleman delved deeper into the Murphy family's history, and what she discovered bore less and less resemblance to the picture of a happy family painted by neighbors and acquaintances. Sarah spent the entire morning in the county courthouse archives, studying the divorce proceedings between Melissa and Thomas Murphy. The documents dated back to 2017 and contained allegations of emotional abuse on both sides. Particularly noteworthy was an episode in which Thomas accused Melissa of pathological jealousy and controlling behavior. "She checked my phone, my email, even installed GPS trackers in my car," Thomas said in one of his statements. "When I worked late, she called the office every half hour. Once, she made a scene at a corporate event, accusing me of having an intimate relationship with a colleague." Melissa, in turn, claimed that Thomas gave her reason to be suspicious by repeatedly breaking promises and evading direct answers. The case included several reports from a family psychologist who worked with the couple before their divorce. "Mutual paranoia and distrust created a toxic cycle of scrutiny and denial," wrote Dr. Alan Fisher. "Of particular concern is the emotional state of their daughter Ashley, who appears to have become an unwitting arbiter in this conflict." After the divorce, Thomas Murphy moved to the West Coast and was largely absent from his daughter's life, limiting his contact to Christmas and birthday cards. Coleman contacted him by phone, and he expressed shock at the news of his daughter's death, but refused to come to Mill Creek, even for the funeral. "I can't be around Melissa again," he said. It would destroy me completely." Detective Coleman noted in her notebook, "Depressed, frightened, possibly still traumatized by the relationship. Check alibi despite geographical distance." While investigating the family's past, technical experts continued to work on Ashley's electronic devices. They managed to recover several more messages that the girl had exchanged with her friend Cassie Brannigan. February 12th, Ashley. "I know it's wrong, but I can't resist this feeling. When we're alone, it feels so natural." February 12th, Cassie. "Ash, you're playing with fire. Think about your mother." February 13th, Ashley. Sometimes I think this is all happening to spite her. She was always so controlling. The interrogation of Cassie Brannigan proved unproductive. The girl claimed she did not know the details of her friend's personal life. Ashley became very secretive in recent months, she said, nervously twisting the edge of her sweater. She said she had someone, but she never mentioned a name. I thought it was just a guy from another school or even college. And you never asked who it was? Coleman insisted. I did, of course, but she always avoided the question, saying something like, "The fewer people who know, the better for everyone." A significant breakthrough came on the 10th day of the investigation, when Coleman obtained surveillance footage from a shopping center on the outskirts of Mill Creek. In the video from March 4th, 2 weeks before the murder, Ryan Baker and Ashley are seen together in a cafe. Their behavior seemed unusual for a stepfather and stepdaughter. Too much touching, intimate head tilts, the way Ryan brushed a strand of hair from the girl's face, with a gesture more befitting a lover than a parent. The detective re-interviewed Ryan Baker and showed him the video. It was just a normal shopping trip, he began to defend himself. Melissa was on duty, and Ashley and I decided to have lunch at the mall. There are no purchases visible in this video, Mr. Baker, and your behavior looks ambiguous. After a long silence, Ryan lowered his head. We just got along well. Ashley was mature for her age, smart. We could talk for hours about anything. Books, politics, art. I never had that kind of connection with Melissa. It went beyond conversation, didn't it? Coleman asked bluntly. Ryan refused to answer and demanded a lawyer. Melissa was also questioned that same day. When she was shown the video, the color drained from her face. I didn't know about this, she said in a trembling voice. They always seemed to get along well, but I never suspected. Mrs. Murphy, let me ask you a direct question. Detective Coleman leaned forward. Did you ever suspect that there might be an inappropriate relationship between your husband and your daughter? Melissa burst into tears, struggling to get the words out. I didn't want to believe it. There were moments, looks, but I convinced myself it was paranoia, a result of my failed first marriage. Ashley was young, beautiful, and I'm so tired at work, the constant shifts. What exactly did you notice, Mrs. Murphy? The way he looked at her at dinner. How she suddenly started dressing differently, using my makeup. The smells. Sometimes the house smelled like her perfume even though she wasn't home. And once I found her hair clip in our bedroom. But Ryan said she had come in to borrow a book. As the investigation deepened, an unexpected source of information came from Mill Creek High School physical education teacher Trevor Blake. He contacted the police voluntarily, saying he had information that might be important to the case. About a month ago, I was driving home late after a basketball game, he said. It was around 11:30 p.m., and I was driving past the lookout point by the lake, where the high school kids usually park. I noticed a familiar car, a silver Toyota Camry. It was Ryan Baker's car, I knew for sure because we had discussed carburetor problems at a parent-teacher conference a week earlier. Are you sure it was his car? Absolutely. He has a distinctive local radio station sticker on the rear window. I was going to go over and say hello, but then I saw he wasn't alone. I thought it was his wife and didn't want to intrude, but now that I think about it, I'm almost certain it was Ashley with him. She has a very distinctive profile. Detective Coleman spent the next 2 days checking Melissa Murphy's alibi. According to St. Joseph's Hospital records, Melissa did indeed work a full shift from 7 p.m. on March 16th to 7 a.m. on March 17th. However, a closer look at the electronic access logs showed an anomaly. Melissa left the building between 11:40 p.m. and 12:25 a.m., around the same time Ryan was away from his workstation. When Coleman presented this information to Melissa, she reluctantly admitted, I was watching them. I had become increasingly suspicious over the past few weeks. That night, I received a message from a neighbor saying she had seen Ryan pull up to the house when he was supposed to be at work. I took a break and went to check. His car was indeed there, but I didn't go inside. I just sat in my car across the street for about 20 minutes, then went back to the clinic. I was afraid of what I might find. Why didn't you report it right away? Because I wanted to protect my family. Do you understand? If it turned out that there was something between them, It would have destroyed everything. And how would I have looked? A wife whose husband was cheating on her with her own daughter. The turning point in the investigation came when a hiding place was discovered in Ryan and Melissa's bedroom. Behind a piece of peeling wallpaper, police found a stack of letters and photographs. It was intimate correspondence between Ryan and Ashley, which had begun about a year ago, shortly after the girl turned 16. The letters revealed the story of a gradually developing relationship, from innocent conversations and shared interests to deep emotional attachment and then physical intimacy. In one of the letters, Ashley wrote, "I know the world will call this wrong, but how can something that feels so natural be wrong? We didn't choose these feelings. They chose us, and now we have to decide what to do about it." In his reply, Ryan expressed a mixture of guilt and obsession. "Every day I tell myself that I have to stop this, that I'm ruining your life and betraying your mother's trust. But then I see you, and all rational arguments disappear. You have become my obsession, my son, around which my whole life revolves." The photos found there left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Some of them showed Ashley and Ryan in unambiguous situations in various locations. In a car, in the backyard of a house, even in the staff room of the supermarket where Ryan worked after closing time. After reviewing the letters, Dr. Linda Perez, a psychologist with the Homicide Investigation Department, provided her conclusion. "We are looking at a classic case of grooming, a process in which an adult psychologically prepares a minor for a manipulative sexual relationship. Ryan Baker skillfully exploited Ashley's vulnerabilities, her complicated relationship with her mother, the absence of her father, her desire for emotional intimacy, to create the illusion of a special, chosen relationship. However, his letters also reveal a genuine emotional involvement, which makes the situation even more dangerous." Jason Hart, Ashley's ex-boyfriend, added to the picture after being questioned again. "In December, shortly before we broke up, Ashley became very tense. One day she said something strange. We were discussing the future, college, and she suddenly burst into tears and said, 'I don't know if I'll make it to college. Sometimes I feel like everything around me is about to explode. I thought it was just stress from school, but now I realize she meant something completely different.'" By the end of the second week of the investigation, Detective Sarah Coleman had gathered enough information to reconstruct the complex dynamics of the Murphy family. On the wall of her office, she posted a diagram with photos of everyone involved and red threads connecting them to each other. "We have irrefutable evidence of an inappropriate relationship between Ryan Baker and Ashley," she explained to her boss, Captain James Rodriguez. "But that doesn't mean he killed her. In fact, all three key figures had access to the house at the time of the alleged murder." "Do you think the mother could have done it?" Rodriguez asked. "Melissa Murphy has a history of intense jealousy. She lied about her whereabouts on the night of the murder, and she had a strong motive if she found out what was going on between her husband and her daughter. What about Baker himself? He also lied about his movements. Perhaps Ashley threatened to expose their relationship, which would have meant not only divorce for him, but also imprisonment for statutory rape. The only thing missing is proof that either of them was in the house at the time of the murder," the captain remarked. "That's what we're working on right now." Coleman nodded. "And there's one more detail that's been bothering me. In Ashley's diary, she writes about a double life. But what if she wasn't just referring to her relationship with Ryan? What if there was something else we don't know about yet?" The third week of the investigation began with the arrest of Ryan Baker, not for murder, but for violating the laws on the age of consent and statutory rape. There was not yet enough evidence to link him to Ashley's murder, but the district attorney insisted on his preliminary detention, fearing that Baker might flee. Detective Coleman used this circumstance to conduct a more thorough search of the Murphy home while Melissa was at work. In an old shoebox hidden in the attic, officers found audio cassettes and a tape recorder, archaic recording devices for 2025. "No one expects to find such things in a modern home," Coleman explained to audiophile specialist Mark Jensen. "That makes them the perfect place to store secrets." The tapes contained audio recordings of conversations in the house. Judging by the dates on the labels, Melissa had started recording what was happening in her home about 6 months ago. I need proof, not just suspicions. Melissa's voice can be heard on one of the first recordings. This time, I'll be ready when it all comes crashing down. The recordings covered different rooms in the house, the kitchen, the living room, and sometimes Ryan and Melissa's bedroom. They captured dozens of everyday conversations, but also a few notable episodes. Recording from January 14th, kitchen. Ryan, you look especially beautiful today. Ashley, quietly. Stop, she can hear you. Ryan, she's at work until 8. Besides, I have the right to compliment my... Ashley, interrupting. Don't say that word. You know it's not true. Ryan, Ash, we have to be careful. Your mother suspects something. Ashley, it's your fault. Why did you kiss me in the kitchen yesterday? It was stupid. Ryan, I couldn't resist. Pause. Listen, maybe we should take a break until things calm down. Ashley, you mean break up? Ryan, no, just be more careful. Less time alone together. Ashley, raising her voice. You're scared. As always, you only think about yourself. Ryan, quiet. It's not about being afraid. I just don't want everything to fall apart. If she finds out... Ashley, what if she does? I'll be an adult in a year and a half. We can leave here. Ryan, you don't understand. It's not just about the law. She's your mother, Ashley. Ashley, I hate this. I hate hiding. I hate lying. Sometimes I think it would be better if she just knew the truth. Entry from February 28th, living room. Melissa, Ashley, why aren't you in bed yet? You have school tomorrow. Ashley, I'm waiting for Ryan. He promised to help me with my science project. Melissa, at 11 o'clock at night? Ashley, he's stuck at work. It's important, Mom. 30% of my grade depends on this project. Melissa, I don't like how much time you two spend together. Ashley, what are you talking about? Melissa, don't think I don't notice the way you look at him. Ashley, nervously laughs. You're paranoid, Mom, seriously. Melissa, I'm not stupid, Ashley. I was your age. I know what being in love looks like. Ashley, you're comparing me to yourself at my age? When you got pregnant with me at 17 and ruined your life? Melissa, after a pause, quietly. I never said you ruined my life. Ashley, you didn't have to say it. I always knew. Sound of a door slamming. The most disturbing entry was dated March 10th, just 6 days before the murder. Melissa, I found this in your jacket. Rustling of paper. Ryan, are you going through my things? Melissa, don't change the subject. These are plane tickets. Los Angeles, you and Ashley, next week. Ryan, this isn't what you think. Melissa, really? Because it looks like my husband is planning to run away with my underage daughter. Ryan, Melissa, calm down. There's a competition for high school students at UCLA. Ashley got selected and I agreed to accompany her. Melissa, stop lying. I called the school. There's no competition. She didn't even apply to UCLA. Ryan, you need to calm down. You're being paranoid again, just like you were with Tom. Melissa, don't you dare compare. I have proof. I'm not blind. I saw the messages on your phone. Ryan, you read my messages? That's invasion of privacy. Melissa, screaming, privacy? You're fucking my daughter in my house and you're talking about privacy? Sound of breaking glass. Ryan, Melissa, listen to me. It's not what it looks like. Melissa, I'll kill you. I swear to God, I'll kill you both if this is true. Ryan, you don't understand. She's not what you think she is. She's manipulating both of us. Melissa, what are you talking about? Ryan, Ashley, she has issues. She came to me, flirted with me, made advances. I turned her down, but she threatened to tell you that I was hitting on her. Melissa, are you accusing my daughter of lying? Ryan, I was trying to protect you from the truth. She hates you, Melissa. She always has. She says horrible things when you're not around. She's plotting to destroy our family. Recording interrupted. Detective Coleman quickly requested a warrant for the surveillance footage from the bus stop near the Murphy home. The March 10th recording showed Ashley returning from school earlier than usual and apparently catching part of the argument. The video shows her running from the house to the intersection, clearly upset, then stopping, standing still for several minutes and then returning. Meanwhile, forensic scientists completed their analysis of DNA samples from Ashley's room. Traces of the victim's blood and skin particles belonging to Melissa Murphy were found on the lamp, the alleged murder weapon. Microparticles of fabric matching the type of shirt that Ryan Baker was wearing on March 16th, according to witnesses, were found under Ashley's fingernails. Our problem is, explained forensic expert Julia Wu, that Melissa's traces on the lamp could have appeared at any time, as she regularly cleaned her daughter's room. And the fabric under Ashley's fingernails doesn't necessarily indicate a struggle. She could have simply touched Ryan's shirt during the day. "What about the fingerprints?" Coleman asked. "There are fingerprints from Melissa and Ashley on the lamp. There are no fingerprints from Ryan, but the lamp was wiped down with a cloth, which could have destroyed any traces." Coleman spent the next 2 days studying the bank and phone records of everyone involved. It turned out that Ryan had been withdrawing small amounts of cash over the past few months. Not enough to arouse Melissa's suspicion, but totaling about $5,000. Calls from his phone to Ashley's cell phone became more frequent, especially when Melissa was working the night shift. At the same time, the analysis of electronic devices continued. Police Department computer expert Alex Tran discovered a hidden email account that Ashley had been using to communicate with real estate agents in Los Angeles. "She was looking for apartments for long-term rent," Tran reported. "Mostly studios and one-bedrooms, not far from the UCLA campus. It looks like she and Baker were really planning to move." "What about Melissa's phone?" Coleman asked. Here's the interesting part. On the day of the murder, March 16th, her phone was turned off from 10:30 p.m. to 1:15 a.m. That's unusual because her phone had been on during all of her night shifts for the past 3 months. The nurses confirmed that there is no ban on cell phones at the clinic. The questioning of Melissa's colleagues yielded new information. Nurse Karen Fox, who worked alongside Melissa that night, recalled a strange moment. Around 11:30 p.m., Melissa received a message that clearly upset her. She turned pale and then asked me to cover for her for an hour, saying she needed to go home urgently. Normally, this requires permission from the senior nurse, but it was a quiet night, so I agreed. When she returned around 1 a.m., she looked strange. Not upset, but more like she had solved a problem. She even smiled at me and said, "Everything will be fine now." I didn't think much of it at the time. Detective Coleman obtained a warrant to access Melissa's messages. At 11:27 p.m. on March 16th, she received a text message from an unknown number. "Stop pretending you're blind. They're together tonight. Check the house." Technical analysis showed that the message was sent from a disposable phone purchased with cash in a neighboring town. Ryan Baker's interrogation in the presence of his lawyer was long and tense. "Mr. Baker, where were you between 11:15 and 11:55 p.m. on the night of the murder?" Coleman asked. "As I said, I went out to get some fresh air. For 40 minutes, on a cold March night." Ryan glanced at his lawyer, who nodded. "I drove home," he admitted. "Ashley called and said she wanted to discuss our plans. We were going to leave in a week. She found the tickets in my wallet and was upset that I hadn't told her the exact date." "Did you meet her at her house?" "Yes, we talked in her room." "And what did you talk about?" "About the future, about starting a new life. She was excited, making plans. She said she couldn't live with her mother anymore, that she hated pretending." "Did you argue?" "No. Everything was fine when I left. She was alive and well." "I swear." "What time did you leave the house?" "Around 11:50 p.m. I had to get back to work." "Did you see anyone else near the house? Maybe you noticed another car?" Ryan shook his head, but then added uncertainly, "Actually, when I was leaving the neighborhood, I thought I saw Melissa's car on Oak Street, about 2 blocks from the house. But I thought I was mistaken. She should have been at work." Coleman noticed that Baker didn't seem too surprised to mention Melissa's car. "Did you suspect she was watching you?" "The last few weeks, yes. She was getting more and more suspicious, checking my phone when she thought I wasn't looking. Once I found a GPS tracker on my car." "And how long do you think Melissa knew about your relationship with Ashley?" "I'm not sure she knew for sure, but she suspected. After that fight on March 10th, when she found the tickets, the atmosphere in the house became unbearable. Ashley and I decided to speed up our departure." "Why didn't you tell us about this earlier?" "Because it makes me the prime suspect. I loved Ashley. Yes, our relationship was wrong in the eyes of the law, but I would never have hurt her." Detective Jacob Griffin, Coleman's assistant, who had been working all this time to find the anonymous sender of the message to Melissa, had succeeded. Surveillance cameras at the store where the disposable phone was purchased captured Jason Hart, Ashley's ex-boyfriend. A second interview with Jason revealed another layer of this complicated story. "Yes, I sent that message," he admitted after a long denial. "Ashley told me everything a week before she died. She was scared, said the situation was getting out of control." "What exactly did she tell you?" "About her and Ryan, that they'd been together for about a year. At first, she thought it was real love, that he cared about her. But lately she'd become afraid of him. He'd become obsessed, controlling, saying they had to be together no matter what." "Why didn't she break up with him?" "She tried, several times, but he threatened her." "How exactly?" "He said that if she left him, he would tell her mother that Ashley had seduced him, that she was mentally unstable. He had compromising photos that he threatened to show everyone at school. Ashley was terrified." "And why did you decide to send that message to Melissa?" Jason lowered his head. "Ashley said Ryan was planning to take her to California against her will, that she was scared. I wanted to help, but I didn't know how. I thought if Melissa knew the truth, she could stop it, protect Ashley." "Do you realize you could have provoked violence?" "I didn't think of it that way. I just wanted the adults to sort it out. Ashley didn't deserve to live in fear." Detective Coleman spent the rest of the day analyzing all the evidence she had gathered. By evening, she invited Captain Rodriguez to her office. "This is how I see the chain of events," she began, pointing to the timeline on the board. At 11:27 p.m., Melissa receives an anonymous message from Jason. By that point, she already suspects that Ryan and her daughter are having an affair. She takes a break and drives home, turning off her phone. At around the same time, Ryan also leaves work and drives to the house, supposedly at Ashley's request. They meet in her room. According to him, he leaves around 11:50 p.m., possibly noticing Melissa's car nearby. "What happens next?" asked Rodriguez. Melissa either enters the house immediately after Ryan leaves or waits for a while, possibly watching him. She confronts Ashley about her relationship with her stepfather. Ashley does not deny it, possibly even telling her about her plans to run away. The confrontation escalates into a physical fight. In the heat of the moment, Melissa grabs a table lamp and strikes her. Realizing what she has done, she tries to tidy up the room, then leaves and returns to the clinic. Arriving there around 1:15 a.m. in the morning, she discovers the body and calls the police, feigning shock. "The story matches the evidence," Rodriguez nodded, "but there are still a lot of assumptions." "Exactly. We need the final piece of evidence that places Melissa in the house at the time of the murder, and I have an idea where to look for it." Sarah Coleman headed to the Brown family home across the street from the Murphys. Harold Brown, 78, a retired engineer, was a meteorology enthusiast and had installed a state-of-the-art home weather station with a camera on his property to record weather conditions. "Mr. Brown, your camera is pointed at the street in front of the Murphy house. Does it record continuously or only when motion is detected?" "Continuously. It takes a picture every 30 seconds. It helps me track changes in weather conditions throughout the day and night." "Can I see the recordings from March 16th to 17? The elderly man led the detective into his garage, which had been converted into an amateur meteorological laboratory. On his computer, he opened a folder containing archived recordings. A series of photos confirmed Coleman's version at 11:48 p.m. The camera captured Ryan's silver Toyota Camry leaving the area. At 11:54 p.m., Melissa's Honda Civic appeared in the frame, parked across the street from the house. A series of subsequent images show Melissa entering the house. She only leaves at 12:45 a.m., gets into the car and drives away. "This is our final piece of evidence," Coleman said, studying the images. Melissa was in the house for almost an hour after Ryan left, and before Ashley's estimated time of death. Armed with new evidence, the detective returned to the station to prepare an arrest warrant for Melissa Murphy on charges of second-degree murder. On the day of Melissa Murphy's arrest, the sky over Mill Creek was covered with heavy gray clouds. Detective Coleman and 2 officers arrived at St. Joseph's Clinic, where Melissa was finishing her morning shift. "Melissa Murphy, you are under arrest on suspicion of the murder of Ashley Murphy," Coleman said in an official tone that contrasted with the quiet hospital corridor. Melissa didn't look surprised. She silently held out her hands for the handcuffs, and only when she was being led out through the main entrance, where local news reporters had gathered, did she quietly say, "I was only protecting what should have been sacred." At the police station, Melissa agreed to give a statement without a plea bargain in the presence of public defender Maria Sanchez. "Tell us what happened on the evening of March 16th, Coleman suggested, turning on the tape recorder. After the message, I realized I couldn't ignore the obvious anymore. Melissa's voice sounded surprisingly calm. "I knew Ryan was supposed to be working late, but the message said he was at our house with Ashley. I turned off my phone so no one could track me and went to check. I parked across the street and saw his car. I waited, watching the house. About 15 minutes later, Ryan came out and drove away. I gave him time to get far away, then went into the house." Melissa paused, clasping her hands in front of her. Ashley was in her room, packing her backpack. I asked her what she was doing, and she said she was leaving with Ryan tonight, that they couldn't wait any longer. She spoke to me with such hatred, as if I were her enemy, not the mother who had sacrificed everything for her. I tried to talk some sense into her, told her she was only 16, that Ryan was manipulating her. She laughed in my face and said, "I seduced him, Mom. He loves me more than he ever loved you." Tears began to roll down Melissa's cheeks, but her voice remained frighteningly steady. I asked her how long it had been going on. She said almost a year since her 16th birthday, right under my nose, in my own house. She laughed as she told me the details, the places where they were together, even in my bed when I was working at night. Something broke inside me. I don't remember how I grabbed the lamp. I only remember her eyes widening in shock when I swung it at her. She couldn't believe I was capable of doing that. After the first blow, she fell onto the bed. I hit her again, and again. I don't know how many times. Coleman kept a neutral expression despite the horrific details. "What did you do then?" "I came to my senses when it was too late. Ashley wasn't moving. There was blood everywhere. I realized what I had done, but I couldn't fix it. I tried to clean up the room a little, wiped the lamp, fixed things that had fallen. Then I went back to the clinic and continued working as if nothing had happened. In the morning, when my shift ended, I went home and pretended I had just found her. I called 911. "Do you regret what you did?" Coleman asked. Melissa looked her straight in the eye. "I regret losing control, but they destroyed our family. He was my husband. She was my daughter. What they did was unnatural." After the interview, Melissa was transferred to the county jail without bail. The next day, Ryan Baker was questioned on new charges of statutory rape and aiding and abetting her escape. "Were you really planning to leave with Ashley on the night of the murder?" Coleman asked. "No, not that night. The tickets were for the following week," Ryan replied. "But Ashley was becoming increasingly anxious. She said her mother suspected something and that we should leave earlier. I tried to calm her down." "Did you know Ashley was afraid you were leaving? That she wanted to end the relationship?" "What? No, she never told me that." Jason Hart claims Ashley told him about her fear, that you had become controlling and threatening toward her. Ryan shook his head. "That's a lie. She loved me. We were planning a future together." Mr. Baker, deleted messages from Ashley to a friend were found where she writes about her doubts, about how the relationship with you had become toxic. "What do you have to say about that?" Ryan looked genuinely surprised. I didn't know. Maybe she had doubts. That's normal. But it was consensual. I never forced her." "You understand that regardless of consent, your actions are a crime? Ashley was not of legal age." Ryan looked down. "I know I did the wrong thing, but I loved her, I swear. I would never hurt her." On the morning of March 30th, 2 weeks after the murder, Detective Coleman and the forensic team conducted a final reconstruction of the events at the Murphy home. "So Ryan arrives around 11:15 p.m. Coleman pointed to the timeline on the board. He and Ashley discuss their escape plans. He leaves at 11:48 p.m., which is confirmed by the cameras. At 11:54 p.m., Melissa arrives, waits a few minutes in the car, then enters the house. She confronts Ashley. Between midnight and 12:30 a.m., an argument ensues, escalating into violence. Melissa strikes Ashley multiple times in the head and upper body with a lamp, causing fatal injuries. After that, she attempts to tidy up the room, wipes the murder weapon, and leaves the house at 12:45 a.m., which is also recorded by the cameras. Key point: we do not see any other people entering or leaving the house between 11:54 p.m. and 12:45 a.m. Melissa was the only person with Ashley at the time of the murder. Melissa Murphy's trial began in September 2025 and attracted the attention of not only Mill Creek residents, but also the national media. The story of a mother who killed her daughter out of jealousy toward her own husband became the subject of crime shows and documentaries even before the verdict was handed down. In his opening statement, District Attorney Robert Dunning painted a picture of Melissa as a woman with a history of pathological jealousy who was unable to cope with her loss of control. This was not a crime of passion, he argued. Melissa Murphy methodically tracked her daughter and husband, installed recording devices, and gathered evidence. She even threatened them both a week before the tragedy. This was premeditated murder, planned by a woman who chose her daughter's death over divorce from her husband. But the defense, led by attorney Elizabeth Chen, built its case around temporary insanity. Mrs. Murphy is a victim of unbearable psychological pressure. Imagine her situation. Her husband seduced her underage daughter in her own home. Any parent in that situation could lose control. Detective Sarah Coleman testified, presenting a chronology of the investigation, from the initial 911 call to the reconstruction of the events of the night of the murder. The court was presented with audio recordings made by Melissa, correspondence between Ashley and Ryan, and photographs. The jury was particularly struck by a recording from March 10th, in which Melissa directly threatened to kill her husband and daughter if she found out that they were indeed having a relationship. Ryan Baker also testified in court, already serving a 3-year sentence for criminal relations with a minor. His testimony conveyed genuine grief for Ashley, although critics noted that his sadness may have been more about the loss of his own freedom than about the girl he claimed to love. "I know I did the wrong thing," he said, "but our feelings were real. Ashley was mature beyond her years, and she initiated the relationship. I'm not proud that I couldn't resist, but I never forced her." Jason Hart's testimony added further complexity to the picture. He claimed that a week before her death, Ashley had confided in him about her fear of her stepfather. She said she wanted to end it, but was afraid of his reaction, Jason testified. Ryan threatened to distribute intimate photos of her and claimed she was mentally unstable. Ashley felt trapped. Ashley's school friends confirmed the changes in her behavior over the past few months. "She became withdrawn and often skipped meetings," said Cassie Brannigan. "When we asked her what was wrong, she brushed us off. Only once, after a couple of drinks at a party, did she say, 'You'd never believe me if I told you the truth about my life?' We thought she was being dramatic like all teenagers." The key piece of evidence was Ashley's fully restored diary, which she had kept for the past 2 years. The entries painted a complex picture of her emotional world, from her initial infatuation with Ryan to her realization of the manipulative nature of their relationship. June 10th, 2024. Ryan kissed me for the first time today. It happened when Mom was on duty. We were watching a movie and suddenly he just leaned over to me. I knew it was wrong, but at the same time, I felt like I had been waiting for this moment. August 21st, 2024. R and I now meet every time my mom works the night shift. He says he's never felt this way about anyone before, that I'm special. Sometimes I'm scared. What if my mom finds out? But most of the time, I'm too happy to worry. November 4th, 2024. R is becoming more demanding. Today, he got angry when I said I wanted to go to a school party instead of our date. He said I don't appreciate what he's risking for me. I canceled my plans with my friends. January 19th, 2025. Sometimes I don't recognize myself. I lie to my mom every day. I broke up with Jason and hardly talk to my friends. My life revolves around R and his moods. When we're together, everything seems right, but afterwards I feel empty. February 27th, 2025. I told R that I want to end our relationship, that it's wrong. He showed me pictures he took while I was sleeping. He said that if I left him, he would send them to my mom and the whole school. that everyone would know what I'm really like. The last entry, dated March 15th, the day before the murder, was particularly disturbing. I can't live like this anymore. Living a double life is tearing me apart. R is now talking about running away to California, but I don't want to leave. I want to go to college, have a normal life. I told Jason part of the truth. Maybe he can help me get out of this nightmare. My mom needs to know the truth, but I'm afraid of her reaction. What if she hates me? What if she doesn't believe me? The psychiatrist called by the defense, Dr. Michael Ferris, showed based on all the evidence that Ashley was a classic victim of grooming and manipulation by an adult in a position of power. In cases like this, the victim often experiences conflicting feelings, attachment to the abuser mixed with fear and shame. Ryan Baker skillfully used his position as a trusted adult and later as a stepfather to create emotional dependence. After 3 weeks of court hearings, the jury retired to deliberate. 19 hours later, they returned with a verdict, guilty of second-degree murder. Melissa Murphy was sentenced to 18 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 12 years. Before handing down the sentence, Judge Ethan Gomez addressed Melissa. "Your tragedy is the result of a series of terrible decisions on both sides. As a mother, you had every right to be enraged by betrayal. But no one has the right to take another person's life, especially their own child. Ashley was a victim who deserved protection, not punishment." The epilogue to the investigation was presented in Detective Coleman's final report. She wrote, "The Murphy-Baker case illustrates the destructive power of secrets and pathological jealousy. Behind the facade of a normal small-town family lay a web of manipulation, betrayal, and emotional abuse. Ashley, caught between two self-centered adults, became the ultimate victim. The most tragic aspect is that, on the day before her death, Ashley tried to find a way out of this situation. If just one of the adults in her life had really listened to her and put her well-being above their own desires, this tragedy could have been prevented." Mill Creek was forever changed after these events. The house at 1422 Pine Street remained empty for a long time until a new family bought it at a reduced price 2 years later, unaware of its dark history. A domestic violence prevention program named after Ashley Murphy was established at the local school. Every year on her birthday, students release white balloons into the sky, a symbol of unfulfilled hopes and unrealized possibilities.